Imagine waking up every morning not knowing if you would survive the day. The sound of explosions echoed across the land, families lived in constant fear, and millions of soldiers fought in muddy trenches. This was the harsh reality of World War I, one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. But what was daily life really like? Let's step back over 100 years and find out. In 1914, Europe was already filled with political tension. Then the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand triggered a chain reaction. Within weeks, powerful nations declared war. Millions of young men volunteered, believing the war would end in just a few months. They imagined glory and victory. Instead, they entered a nightmare that lasted more than 4 years. Families proudly waved goodbye, never realizing many of their loved ones would never return. The trenches became home to millions of soldiers. These narrow ditches stretched for hundreds of miles. Rain filled them with freezing water and thick mud. Soldiers slept in wet clothes surrounded by rats and insects. Food was often cold, stale, and scarce. Clean drinking water was limited. Every moment carried danger. A sniper's bullet, an artillery shell, or a sudden attack could end a life within seconds. Many soldiers suffered not only physical injuries but also severe emotional trauma after months of nonstop fighting. As the months turned into years, the conflict expanded far beyond the borders of Europe. It became a truly global war, dragging in colonies and nations from every corner of the earth. From the scorching deserts of the Middle East to the freezing waters of the Atlantic, there was no escape from the chaos. On the front lines, the sheer scale of mobilization was unprecedented. Millions of men from different cultures, languages, and backgrounds found themselves trapped in the same brutal struggle for survival. The psychological burden grew heavier every day. The constant roar of artillery, a phenomenon known as drumfire, could last for days without stopping, driving men to the brink of madness. In the rare moments of silence, the dread of the next whistle blowing to signal an attack over the top was agonizing. Letters from home became the only lifeline keeping the soldiers connected to humanity, yet even those words carried the painful reminder of a peaceful life that felt increasingly out of reach. The toll of battle, the environment itself became an enemy. In the summer, the trenches baked under a relentless sun, creating an unbearable stench of decay, while winter brought a bitter frost that caused trench foot and frostbite, claiming limbs before a single shot was fired. Soldiers had to find a bizarre kind of normalcy amidst this devastation, playing cards on wooden ammunition boxes or carving artwork from spent shell casings just to keep their minds occupied. They formed unbreakable bonds with the men beside them, knowing that the person sharing their ration of hardtack biscuit might be the only one there to comfort them in their final moments. Meanwhile, medical advances raced to keep up with the overwhelming flood of casualties, but the sheer volume of wounded stretched field hospitals to their breaking point. Brave stretcher bearers risked their lives running directly into no man's land under heavy fire, desperate to drag fallen comrades back to safety. For those who did make it back, the return to the front was a constant dark cloud hanging over their recovery, as healed wounds simply meant a ticket back to the very same muddy trenches. This endless cycle of survival and sacrifice redefined the meaning of courage for an entire generation. Just soldiers. Food became scarce, and governments rationed basic supplies like bread, sugar, and meat. Women stepped into factories, hospitals, and farms to replace the men fighting at the front. Children helped their families however they could while schools struggled to continue. Many cities lived under the constant threat of air raids, forcing families to seek shelter whenever alarms sounded. Every letter from the battlefield brought either hope or heartbreaking news. World War I introduced terrifying new weapons. Machine guns could fire hundreds of bullets every minute. Poison gas forced soldiers to wear gas masks or risk painful injuries. Massive tanks slowly crossed battlefields, while airplanes were used for reconnaissance and later for combat. These inventions made the war far more destructive than anyone had imagined. When the fighting finally ended in 1918, the world had changed forever. Millions of soldiers and civilians had lost their lives. Entire towns and villages had been destroyed. Families mourned loved ones, while survivors carried emotional and physical scars for the rest of their lives. World War I became a powerful reminder of the terrible cost of war and why peace is so valuable.
If you enjoyed this journey into history, don't forget to like the channel and join us for more incredible stories from the past.